right, we're good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Paul Lopez, your Denver clerk and recorder. You are now tuned in to our foreclosure town hall. This is part of our program and part of an effort, a multi-agency effort to make sure that you have the information you need or to share to make sure that we are doing everything possible to educate Denver residents and beyond in terms of housing, foreclosures, foreclosure prevention, and then strategies on how to stay afloat. The pandemic has been a shock to our economy, a shock to our system. The good thing is that because of folks getting vaccinated, we're quickly coming back to normal. So I wanted to, one, take the opportunities to thank you for tuning in. Two, really promote the opportunity for if you haven't been vaccinated, make sure you go get vaccinated. You can go to Denver Health. You can hit our office up, go to denvergov.org, and then you will have information on COVID-19 resources. The faster that we can get back to this normal, the faster that we can get dollars back into our communities and people in their homes and folks in their work. So I want to also allow our interpreter to explain the instructions for the interpretation. So, bienvenidos.
Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos, a todas y a todos. Gracias por tenerme aquí. Mi nombre es Valentina y estoy aquí por parte de Community Language Co-op para ofrecerles justicia lingüística en la sesión de hoy. La justicia lingüística es un tipo de interpretación que busca crear espacios en los que no domine ningún idioma, espacios en los que todas puedan participar con el idioma de su corazón. Para lograr este objetivo vamos a utilizar la función de interpretación de Zoom. Lo que verán en unos minutitos es que aparece un nuevo icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla que parece un globo terráqueo. Cuando lo vean, seleccionen el idioma en el que deseen participar, inglés, español u off, apagado si usted es completamente bilingüe. Si está reuniéndose a esta junta a partir de un teléfono o de una tableta, encontrará las mismas opciones en el botón derecho, en la parte superior derecha de su pantalla. Tiene 3 puntitos y dice más. Vamos a activar los canales para asegurarnos de que funcionen y nuevamente gracias por tenerme aquí. Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Valentina and I'm here on behalf of Community Language Co-op. I'm a simultaneous interpreter here to provide language justice for today's meeting. Language justice is a type of interpretation that seeks to create spaces in which no one language is dominant, spaces in which everyone can participate in the language of their heart. To achieve this objective, we will be using Zoom's interpretation feature. What you will see in a couple of minutes is that a new icon that looks like a globe will appear at the bottom of your screen. When you see it, select the language that you wish to listen in and speak in, English, Spanish, or off. If you're joining the meeting through a phone or a tablet, you will find the same options in the button with the 3 dots above it, and the drop-down menu will include the interpretation options. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on the channels now to make sure that they work. Again, many thanks for having me.
Thank you, Valentina. Muchas gracias, Valentina. I think that's absolutely critical. Those of you who want to tune in the language of your choice, please do so with those instructions. Before we begin, I also want to recognize our partners in this. Definitely our office, the Office of the Clerk and Recorder, the Office of Financial Empowerment and Protection. It's part of the Denver Human Rights and Community Partnerships, otherwise known as OFEP, Elevation Community Land Trust, and the West Denver Renaissance Collaborative. In other town halls, the Denver Housing Authority is also a big partner with us. So thank you all for your partnership. And I do also want to recognize Denver City Councilwoman Jamie Torres, who has joined us as well too, and will be participating in the dialogue and asking questions. And I know that she has efforts in the west side of Denver in terms of keeping people housed and making sure folks are surviving through the pandemic and with the resources that they need. I want to also introduce our topic, which is making sure that it's a virtual town hall and stay in place program. What we want to do with this, and the goal for tonight, is to share information on the stay in place program as an alternative to foreclosure. And let me just say this, as the public trustee for the city and county of Denver, it is our role not to take sides in a foreclosure hearing or to provide legal advice. our role is to make sure that we have public oversight of the whole foreclosure process. That's why I exist as the public trustee. And it's almost like being an umpire calling a baseball game. So just making sure that the playing field is level and the rules are the same and fair. So with that, I want to introduce Renee Martinez Stone, who is the director of the West Denver Renaissance Collaborative. And she has been working diligently in affordable housing and redevelopment solutions with the community for 20 plus years. The other presenter I want to introduce is Steph Gafaci. She is the president and CEO of Elevation Community Land Trust. Fanchi, and Ms. Fanchi is the CEO of Elevation Community Land Trust, which is a statewide platform for permanently affordable homeownership, which has been her passion and life's work for more than 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great lineup here for you, and I will turn this over to Ms. Renee Martinez Stone.
Thank you very much, Clerk Lopez. It's an honor to be here tonight. So I'm going to jump right in. The Stay in Place program that we're going to talk with you tonight about was a direct response to community leaders asking us to find solutions that would support existing homeowners in West Denver, helping them cope with rising housing costs, property taxes, and then after that, the pressures of COVID. They asked us to bring awareness to existing services that are provided already through trusted organizations to really focus on minimizing the displacement that we knew was happening, and to increase those options if we could, to help someone have more choices to stay in place in the neighborhoods that they loved. The map on the right shows we did an analysis, and between 2015 and 2018, there were almost 4,000 households in 9 West Denver neighborhoods. So they're in the area, West Colfax, Villa Park, Barnums, Valverde, Westwood, and Akmar Park. There were 4,000 households who left after a real estate transaction. And the dots illustrate, how dispersed those households really went and how many went to the south to stay closer to the communities and neighborhoods that they love. Next slide. So what we're hearing and what we have been hearing when the West Denver Renaissance partnered up with the Elevation Community Land Trust is that homeowners are struggling. They may have been keeping up month to month and then they had forbearance, but ultimately they have a little bit of uncertainty about their future. The most immediate resource that you have in this situation as a homeowner is HUD certified housing counselors. And there are plenty of them around Denver. And in this presentation, we're going to highlight the free assistance, the customized needs that are provided in these sessions. So if you're struggling financially, you're worried about future payments, you want to meet with a HUD counselor. They will present all of your options to you. And ultimately, within those choices, you will be talking about what are your priorities and what can you do. And some of those are going to be, would you like to leave your home? And in that instance, you might choose to sell your home, short sale, a deed in lieu, or do even foreclosure if that's where you're headed. But there are some homeowners who may want to filter those options to stay in their home. And there's various tools, repayment plans, loan modification, refinancing your current mortgage may be an option. But we want to talk to you tonight about an option that does align in that column to help you stay in your home, which is the Stay in Place program. And so we're going to detail that tonight and take you through these options. We do want to clarify that someone choosing the Stay in Place program is struggling financially, but it's fairly early on. They're not in default. And so ideally, this is a good window before your forbearance ends and while you're considering what your options are with your HUD counselor. So this slide really, I mean, you'll talk about the pros and cons with your housing counselor. If this is a good option for you really hinges around if you want to stay in place. You want to stay in your home and in your neighborhood, and you want to secure your home as a family asset that can be passed on to other members of your family. You will need to meet the income qualifications of the stay in place program, which is that your area median income is at or below 80% of the area median income, and that you have, what you want to do is address the fact that you've experienced a reduction in your income and or other issues that are creating a struggle for you month to month. So you've been cost burdened, and you do not want to continue that situation. Next slide, we'll talk about some of the benefits that at a very high level. You want to maintain your home ownership. That's critically important to you. So you'll also be staying in place where your home is. You want to take what is the biggest asset that you own, which is your home, and invest in that to grow that wealth for your family. In terms of your cost burden, what you may decide to do is that rather than being cost burdened, you'd like to come into the land trust and use the lower debt that you will have each month to pursue other goals. It might be retirement, it might be saving for another investment, it might be college, it might be other things. And so there's an option and some freedom that you have within this. And then the last would just be, it's one of the most unique tools that helps you realize the home equity that you've built up in the years that you've owned your home against the market value without having to take more debt or having to sell your home and not be able to live there. So it's fairly unique from that aspect. Next slide. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Stefka.
Thank you, Renee. We're going to try to better understand what this really means for you as a homeowner by walking alongside a Denver family that is going through a specific situation. So Raphael and Rachel bought their home 12 years ago when home prices were dropping due to the housing crash. They loved their home and over the years cared for and improved it, adding a garage and expanding the kitchen by refinancing their mortgage to take advantage of equity that had been building up as property values rose. That increased their monthly payment, and increasing property taxes made it even higher. But they were still able to afford their housing payment, even if it was a bit tight for their budget. Their kids attended the neighborhood school where Rachel worked as a para, and Raphael's mom lived just up the street. The family had a strong network at their local church and with the regulars at Roth's Barbershop. When COVID hit, school shut down and the barbershop was forced to close its doors. Both Roth and Rachel applied for unemployment, but that wouldn't be nearly enough to cover the mortgage and all of their other needs. Rachel called their mortgage company and applied for a forbearance, which would suspend their payments during the pandemic. Not having to worry about their $1,600 per month payment was such a relief for them. It meant their lives could continue free from the fear of losing the home they loved. But as June quickly approaches, Rachel and Roth are becoming more and more anxious about what will happen when their payments pick up again. Their income has not returned to the levels before COVID, and Rachel is still unemployed. Roth knows from talking to his neighbors and customers that their home, which cost him $200,000 when they purchased it, could now be worth twice that. If they sold their home, they could pay off the mortgage and make a good profit that could pay off their debts and make a good start on college and retirement goals. But Rachel hates to think about selling their home, and she knows that they will most likely never be able to afford to buy a home again, especially in the same neighborhood. Her friend's family rents nearby, but her rent is even more than their mortgage payment. Selling their home would mean leaving and making a new life somewhere else, far from their friend's family and community. So let's just review that their priorities and really the family's values are to maintain home ownership, to stay in their home in their neighborhood, and to be able to afford those monthly housing costs with just one income in their household. They have concerns too. They're worried about their increasing housing costs. They have that reduced household income, and they're concerned about affording that monthly payment after the forbearance goes away. So together, Raphael and Rachel are weighing their options. So first, they're considering mortgage assistance programs. That would really get them up to date on their current mortgage payments, but meeting those housing costs could continue to be a struggle for them. It's really a short-term solution to what seems to be an ongoing problem for them, and they're a little worried about ongoing stress. Then they consider refinance. With less income coming in, they might not even be able to qualify for that. And they could realize their equity when they refinance, but their monthly payment could possibly go up. There's just a lot of variables at play that they're not sure about. They also considered a reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage would also bring them additional income that would come from their equity, but at the end of the day, the bank would end up with their home and they wouldn't be able to leave their home to their children. They considered selling their home on the market as well. And in this market, we can understand why they would consider that. They'd realize the full value of their home, but even then, they may not be able to buy another home in Denver. They won't get to stay in their own home or the neighborhood they love. They even considered not doing anything, and they hope that it gets better. And we all do that, right? When there's a problem in front of us, we want to ignore it as long as possible. I always say that I always call that turning up the radio when my car starts to make noise. They even considered declaring bankruptcy. But when you declare bankruptcy, it doesn't affect your mortgage or your housing costs at all. It only affects consumer debt. Finally, they thought about entering into the land trust. Next slide. Rachel learned from a neighbor who'd recently spoken to their city councilwoman that there was a community organization offering some alternatives and choices for struggling homeowners like them, while also building up affordable housing options for the future. She'd never heard of a community land trust, but she wanted to learn more. Community land trusts came out of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and today there are more than 260 CLTs in the US. This model creates affordable ownership options by separating the land from the improvements, selling the home to a qualified household, but holding the land in a trust stewarded by the community so that there will always be affordable housing options. Elevation is a nonprofit governed by a board of directors that includes CLT homeowners and neighborhood representatives. We set our affordable prices using a formula of what is affordable to a household making 70% of the area median income or 78% of the market value, whichever is lower. In SIP, Raphael and Rachel can sell their property to the land trust and then buy their home back at that affordable price. Because they have equity built up, they can use the difference to pay off debt and make needed repairs and still be able to lower their new mortgage amount. The home would then be tied to the land with a 99-year renewable ground lease, giving the family full access to the property, keeping it owner occupied, and setting a new shared equity resale formula moving forward so that the same affordable opportunity can be offered to the next buyer. Next slide. So right now, Raphael and Rachel pay $1,628 each month toward their mortgage principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. They also have about $15,000 in credit card debt and car loans. And they know that their home needs some repairs that they just haven't been able to afford. When they talked to Elevation Community Land Trust, they learned that their home appraised for $380,000. If they chose to enter the land trust, ECLT would buy their property for that market value and then sell the home back to Rolf and Rachel for a new affordable price of $289,530. Elevation prices their homes to be affordable to households making 70% of the area median income and makes up that difference with subsidies from the city of Denver and from charitable foundations. Because they had a mortgage balance on their home of $110,000, Rolf and Rachel would receive $270,000 at that transaction. They could pay off all their debts and make those home repairs that they've been needing, and will still have $240,000 left over. If they put all of that toward the affordable purchase price for their home, they will then only need a mortgage of less than $53,000. That mortgage would have a payment of $577, including principal, taxes, and interest. So what happened in the end of this scenario? So they really understood that it was not right for everyone, but Rachel and Raphael decided that the community land trust option was the best fit for their family and for their unique situation, because it was the only way they could stay in their home and be able to comfortably pay all their bills. After attending an orientation and meeting with Elevation staff, they applied for mortgage assistance to help them cover their costs because they knew that SIP could take 4 to 12 weeks. And they didn't want to jeopardize their ability to qualify for a new mortgage by having a missing or late payment. The family sold their land into the CLT, but still owned their home. Because they were able to realize all of the equity they had built up in their home, they were happy to share the new equity moving forward by offering their home at an affordable price to another qualified family if they should ever wish to sell. But Raphael and Rachel wanted to leave their home to their children, which is one reason they chose SIP. Still, it made them feel good knowing that if their home was ever sold outside of their family, it would remain an affordable opportunity in the neighborhood for generations to come. What felt best of all was the relief that Raphael and Rachel felt when they went to sleep that night, free from stress and worry as stable homeowners. So, I think what we need to talk about now is what are the next steps for anyone in a situation like Raphael and Rachel. And the first thing is always to schedule a meeting with a HUD certified housing counselor. Talk with them about your particular situation. This is what they're trained to do, to walk through your particular financials. And if you are even a little bit nervous about your housing payment, now is the time to talk to them. Talk to them and mention the Stay in Place program to see if it might be a good fit for you. Next, you can attend a SIP orientation. And we do have an orientation coming up on June 16th. We'll give you that information in a moment. And then complete a SIP intake form that will be available to you as well. That'll have some basic information that'll let us know if this is a good program for your scenario. This is our next SIP orientation. It is June 16th at 6 p.m. and it's just via Zoom, just like this meeting. You can click here to register, and this slide deck will be available to you after this meeting. You can also find out more information on the Stay in Place program at mywdrc.org/SIP. And there's a lot of information here, everything from a brochure to a short video to a slide deck and some great information that compares different options and things like that. So we invite you to visit that site, to pull out some more information and to really educate yourselves. But most importantly, we invite you to visit a housing counselor as soon as you can. It really is critical to look into this option as early as possible. Renee, do you want to see if there's any questions from the community about this program?
Yeah, so we've presented a lot of material, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to ask you to put your questions into the chat so that we can answer those. We also have a community-focused panel to help us to raise and answer some of the common questions that community members are going to have about this program. So we're going to ask Clerk Paul Lopez to serve. He's on that panel. We have Councilwoman Jamie Torres. I believe we have Alan Tafoya, the Deputy Director of the Office of Financial Empowerment and Protection. And we have Charlotte O'Donnell, who's a DHA HUD certified housing counselor. And so why don't we, while you're putting your questions into the chat, Charlotte, do you want to kick us off? Since we mentioned housing counselors and emphasize the importance of that, do you want to kick us off with a question, and then we'll go to either Councilwoman Torres or Clerk Lopez for some questions that they know the community may have.
Great. Well, thanks, Renee. And thank you, Steph, for that presentation. Lots of information to consider. So a question that comes to mind for me, which is a good question for any homeowner to ask themselves, is when would be a right time to consider SIP as an option, or the land trust as an option, when the homeowner is having concerns about their mortgage? Is it when they get in default, while they're current? When would be the right time?
So Charlotte, I think it's really important for anyone that thinks that not being able to make their mortgage payment could be a permanent problem. So it's not a this month problem. It's going to be a problem next month and the month after that as well. When you feel that that might be your scenario, that's the time to consider this. Once you are missing a mortgage payment, it could be, this could not be the right path for you, because you do need to qualify for another mortgage. So it is really critical for it to be early in the process. And again, when you realize that it's not a temporary problem, because this really is a permanent solution. So it's something that will restructure your ownership in a way that gives you a new, permanently and stabilized new mortgage payment. So if you think you have this sort of ongoing issue, then we hope that this could be an ongoing solution for you. So the earlier, the better is really the answer to that question.
Thank you, Stefka.
All right. Councilwoman Torres or Clerk Lopez, do you have some questions? We're starting to see some questions from the panelists as well. So why don't you go ahead, and then we'll get to these.
I'm looking at, I think, some of the questions that have been coming in a little bit from community in terms of, does this create kind of a landlord situation? What's the relationship between the homeowner and the land trust? Can you clarify that a little bit more?
Sure. So although the land trust will own the land, the ground lease, which really is the legal tie essentially between the home and the land, the homeowner has full access to the land just like any other homeowner, and full responsibility for the land. So again, just like any homeowner, having maintenance of the land and the liability associated with the land as well. So the upside and the downside that any homeowner has associated with that land is in place with a community land trust homeowner as well. So there are absolutely some restrictions that are in place as part of that land lease. One of them is that it has to be owner occupied at least 9 months of the year, because we don't want to offer discounted prices to investors who will then be making income off of it. So there's some restrictions like that. We want to make sure that we are following the law. So any code violations, we want to follow city code and local laws, things like that. At the same time, we will not, like a landlord, be entering your property unless there's any outward sign of illegal activity or anything like that. So it is one step up from your typical ownership. but it is certainly not at the level of a landlord, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Stefka. And I think folks, myself included, have been just trying to kind of wrap my mind around what is this arrangement and is it a forever arrangement? And from what I understand, once it's sold, the land is sold to the land trust. It's permanently land owned by the land trust. So if I own the home, I could sell the home. The new person buying the home still owns just the building. The elevation would still own the land, which tell me a little bit about how that continues to make it affordable.
Yeah, that actually brings up another question I often get asked, Councilwoman, which is, once I sell my land in a land trust, can I then buy it back? So, everything about a land trust is about balance. So we're balancing the needs of a homeowner and the needs of the community, right? We're balancing the needs of the community, in future families that will need to find and afford affordable opportunities and affordable home ownership, with this family's need to build wealth and to be able to move up and have their own opportunities. And so one of the things that the land lease does put in place is a shared equity scenario. So the base price of our home, which is our affordable price at this point, is when you go to sell it, you can tack on any equity that you've built up by paying down your mortgage is yours, plus 25% of the appreciation over time. So if your home has gone up in value by $100,000, like it did this past year, you could tack on $25,000 to your base price, and that's what you would make on that. It is a balance, certainly, because it's not what you could make with a market home, but by limiting that, we're now passing forward the opportunity to another family who needs to have an affordable opportunity in that same neighborhood.
Thank you, Stefka. And just a quick comment before I let another question come through. When we were experiencing such high numbers of foreclosure during the Great Recession, I know we were searching for what's a tool. What is a tool when you're at that point of desperation that can help you stay in that home and continue kind of building on an asset that you've proudly owned for several years, rather than to see that entire property turned over, usually to investors, which is the case that we've seen in West Denver. So thank you so much for taking a couple questions.
Sure.
Yeah, and if I may add on to that, Councilwoman, one of the things that we see now, literally people having lost their homes and seeing a lot of gentrification happen, and just this movement of folks from places like West Denver to Adams County or some other neighborhood. A lot of that was for foreclosures, and a lot of those foreclosures could have been prevented. And there's a lot of things that people can do to understand. One is to understand that process. When you get that notice of foreclosure, if you get this notice of foreclosure, know that you have a lot of different steps. Now, we can't provide legal advice, but we can educate you about and teach you about the process and what to expect and what some of your options may be. And you can do that. You can give us a call, 311, easy from your phone, and connect with the Denver Clerk and Recorder's Office. And we can make sure that we can have those questions that you have answered. And, we have also a lot of partners here that are HUD certified partners. And I think at some point we can put that information on the screen so you're able to call in as well too. One of the things I really, really want to make clear, and I think this was a question that was asked a couple of times indirectly, is that a person would not be forced out of the program if their situation changed, in terms of they got a new job or they got more income coming in. If you are able to not only sustain yourself in the program, but become a little bit more successful in it, right? I think one of the things I want to make clear, and Ms. Martinez Stone, let me know if this is correct. that a person would not be forced out of the program if their situation changed or improved, and further, they would still be able to pass their home on to family members in this program, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I would say in addition, if your financial situation changed, you're in even a better position because you've lowered your housing expenses. So now you have more ability to pursue those other goals that are investing in your retirement and in other things that are your goals. So that is
So
true. You could win the lottery on the week after you enter into the land trust, and that is fine. You will not be kicked out of the program.
So a person would not be punished for becoming financially stable.
That's
We
the
hope
goal
that's
of the
exactly what
program.
this would do.
That's the goal of the program.
Yeah.
And to really shift that housing burden into less stress and more opportunities for that homeowner. There was a second question
Yeah, there is.
that and I think that you answered it, Stefka. I was not sure that I answered
There
it.
was one that I saw that kind of hinted at a question that I want to just be really clear about, and that is that when you would enter into the land trust through the stay in place program, you're actually realizing all of the equity that you've built up to date, all of it. There's no equity share at that point. You're realizing all of it and then rolling it back in so that you're lowering that mortgage and you're stabilizing the ownership. It's only from that point forward that you're sharing the equity. So everything that you've done to date, all that you've achieved, you're not losing that. You're holding that in place and it's being stabilized. And then you're sharing the equity moving forward, and you're not sharing the proceeds at sale. Rather, you're just selling it for a lower price. So you're offering that to another person who is in need of affordable home ownership. And those would be qualified community members under 80% of the area median income. So it's really passing forward the opportunity to somebody else.
I know that there's another question, and I do want to ask this that came in. I know this may have been addressed. How is the program different than what some would consider a reverse mortgage?
So the primary difference is, well, I mean, one difference is the legal structure, in that the ownership of the land is what is being removed from the homeowner. So it is going to the land trust. In the case of a reverse mortgage, the entire property is sort of slowly being transferred to the mortgagor. And so at the end of the day, when that mortgage is done being paid out, when you pass away, when that property is transferred by whatever mechanism, it is then owned by the bank. So you no longer own that because the equity was paid out to you over time. In the community land trust model, only the land is no longer owned by you. You still own that home. You can still will it to your children. You can still sell it and receive a portion of the equity and all of the equity that you've built up yourself. So a share of the appreciation and all of the equity. So they're really very different structures.
Yeah, and now I know that there's other questions in the queue as well, but I think this is right on a good transition. What happens if housing prices go down and a person would need to move? Is the negative equity or the loss in equity shared as well?
It is. That's a great question. Yes, so homeownership in all forms is an investment. And so, yes, we are sharing the risk. So we're sharing the reward on the upside and we are sharing the risk on the downside.
Other questions? That was a great answer. And I think that's something that folks need to understand is this is a program about ownership. And I think it's ownership in common. And I think that's something that is actually really pretty awesome. It's not a new idea. This is something you said that was began being implemented in the 60s, right?
That's right. It came out of the civil rights movement, actually, from a group of sharecroppers in rural Georgia.
Okay.
So that's a good transition to a question I see a panelist put on. How does the SIP help me build wealth now and in years to come?
So I hope I'm not repeating myself, but I mean, I am repeating myself, but I hope it's actually answering the question. And that is that the wealth that you've built up in your home to date, you will realize that now. Whereas if you were to be foreclosed upon, you would lose it. If you were to sell it, you would gain it. So there's lots of different options where you might still be able to realize that wealth. This is one of the only options where you could realize that, but still stay in the same home, right? And stay in the same place. You'd realize the wealth you've built up to date, essentially reinvest it in that home along with subsidies, which would come from elevation and from the city. And then be really stabilized at that point in your home. And in the future, from that point on, you're still continuing to build wealth. It's just that you're building wealth. So in your new mortgage, you are still building equity through your payments. And then you're building a share of the appreciation moving forward. So that's 25% of the appreciation. And the reason, again, is to pass that opportunity on to another family for generations to come, really. It's a 99-year ground lease that's renewable. So we are really talking about perpetual affordability in the city of Denver.
I know that there are other questions. Folks who are tuning in on Facebook, please put a question in the chat and we can get this addressed. I mean, this is something that's actually pretty awesome. As you know, it's not new, but it is an idea and a great solution for a lot of the challenges that we're facing in the pandemic and even before the pandemic. I know this is something that Ms. Martinez Stone had been talking about with the West Denver Renaissance Collaborative, and I think something that was being considered out in global Swansea area as well too. So, and from what I understand, Ms. Martinez Stone, a home in the land trust can be transferred to family, and they don't have to have income to qualify. That's correct, right?
Yeah, and Stefka, stop me. And you can transfer the home to anyone in the family. They don't have to income qualify as the recipient of the home. You can transfer it to family. You can renew the 99-year land lease. And I believe upon transfer, Stefka, it does renew the land lease. Is that accurate?
It does. And upon every sale and transfer, it renews automatically. Yeah. So the only way you'd ever go through the whole 99-year land lease is if it stayed just within a family without ever transferring ownership. Let's see.
Can you talk a little bit about that sale? Can you sell it market value, and who can buy? Are there any limitations on that?
So yes, there are limitations to both the sales price and who can purchase. We, as Elevation Community Land Trust, work with a pipeline of qualified buyers. So they apply through us, we work with them. And so there's a pool of buyers that will be ready to purchase this home. So you don't have to go out and list and market, et cetera. But we will let you know, according to the land lease, exactly what that maximum purchase price is. But essentially, it is your base price plus 25% of the appreciation over time. And it is based on your market appraisal from the time you bought it to the time you sell it, plus any commissions and fees and that kind of thing. So those are all on top of the appreciation, so they don't cut into it, if that makes sense. Also, just back to your comment about being able to pass on to family, that is true. Immediate family does not have to income qualify. However, if you will your home to someone outside of your immediate family or a friend or something like that, which you absolutely can do, they would either have to income qualify or would have to, in order to live in the home, they would have to income qualify. If they didn't income qualify, they of course still own the home, but they would have to then sell and they would take that proceed. So the wealth that you built up is then passed on to them. So that's like the really exciting thing about this, is that not only are you building up wealth, but you're passing it on to future generations.
And leaving an affordable home within your neighborhood for the next buyer, which is really important. We all see with the rising cost of homes right now.
Panelists, I know that there's other questions. I don't know if anybody wanted to chime in on any others. One of them, are there any other programs like SIP in Colorado? Or is this the only opportunity for folks? I know that we're Denver centric. I'm sorry, Stephanie, go ahead.
I believe it's the only program like it in Colorado. Yes.
And this is a good opportunity for those of you who may not live in Denver. No worries. I mean, there are efforts and programs aimed at keeping you in your home, and resources around foreclosure and understanding the foreclosure process, especially with your public trustee in whatever county that you live in. If you contact the public trustee's office, which in other counties it's the treasurer, not the clerk, and they can help you with some of those resources as well. So, or you know what, if you feel so inclined to just give us a call, 311, or contact us, denverclerkandrecorder.org, or any one of these organizations. Remember, some of these organizations, and we'll put this back on the screen, some of these are Denver HUD approved counseling agencies aren't just limited to Denver. I know like places like Brothers View Development and NewSet and Del Norte and NEDHC. These are all resources from our partners that are trusted, that are certified, and they can help you with that as well too. So those of you who may be tuning in from other counties, definitely feel inclined to contact whatever you feel comfortable with. In Denver, we will definitely guide you to the right place, so that you have your questions answered in the process.
And we are working to make this available across the state as well.
There you go.
But right now it is a Denver program.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, so to clarify that, I started talking about how our partnership originated in West Denver, but the Stay in Place program is available throughout the city.
Yep. I don't know if there are any other questions, panelists, partners, or is there anything else for us to add or to include? I want to take advantage of the fact that we are on Facebook Live, and we did budget for a full hour, 7 p.m. But look, it's beautiful outside, and there's no tornadoes over here. But I could tell you that we can also let people go early as well too. Oh, there's another question.
From Johnny, can you build a new home on the property or only make improvements to the structure that's there when the trust buys the land? So you want to start talking about improvements and how those are handled, Stefka?
So that's an interesting question. I feel like there's two questions there. One is what he asked and one is what you just said to address. So certainly we have a quality improvement process, that a qualified improvement process that we have a formula for, where if you improve your home, so you add a bathroom, a bedroom, living space, etc., you can increase the share of the appreciation that you get. In addition, there's absolutely the opportunity to, and in fact, when Renee said that we started this conversation in West Denver, it was around utilizing this model to invest in the development of an accessory dwelling unit on the property. So yes, it absolutely could, there could be the opportunity to build new construction on your property. It just requires, working with the land trust to ensure that all codes and permits and everything are met. And yeah, I think there's absolutely room to do that. I'm trying to think of what scenario that might happen in other than an ADU, but yes, absolutely. And Barbara made an excellent comment here in the chat that our 3 categories of qualified capital improvements are accessibility, energy efficiency, and added living space. So I had mentioned the added living space. You can also get added appreciation if you improve the energy efficiency of your home or the accessibility of your home.
Yeah, and I'll go back to John's question, who had said, what if my financial circumstances change? Would I be kicked out of the program? And we said no, but I will add on this question, if you had zoning and you had room in your lot, you could use that financial success to build an accessory dwelling unit in which you can rent affordably to family or to someone else in the neighborhood. So that would be allowed as well.
Mm-hmm. We're all about creating opportunity, not shutting it off. So if you ever have a question about whether something's not allowed, if it creates opportunity for you, we're there to make it happen.
Stefka, there was one other question that had been identified as a common one, which is, what if I'm in the SIP program and I am at risk of missing a mortgage payment? Then what happens?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm like looking for the question. I won't bother digging through the chat. So if you're in the SIP program, meaning you have your new structured mortgage with your new lowered payment, and you have some sort of event that has a lowered, and some life event that has you struggling with your new mortgage payment. So the first thing you would do is to contact Elevation. So we'll certainly get you in touch with any kind of mortgage resources. One of the great things about being part of a community land trust is that the foreclosure rate among community land trusts is nearly non-existent. It's extremely low, and that was true even during the last recession and foreclosure crisis. And that's really because it is a partnership. Not only we're not just the owners of the land and the land lease, we're your partners in home ownership. And so we're there to help you and make sure that you continue to be stable.
Yeah. Here's one. One of the conversations that's happening, and I remember this. I mean, the former councilman and me, when we did the 2010 rezoning, additional dwelling units, which are called ADUs or granny flats, or just to level the playing field, I think sometimes they're grandpa flats as well too, right? And so I think, converted garages, things like that. So ADUs are an opportunity for folks as well. And I think, Renee Martinez Stone has, with the organization, with the West Denver Renaissance Collaborative, really started doing a deep dive and really looking at the opportunity for additional dwelling units, these little units in the back of people's homes and converted garages and things like that, and making those a legal use. And I don't know if maybe Renee, if we wanted to hear more about ADUs, if one, what's the intersection between ADUs and these properties? If let's just say if somebody wanted to build an ADU on their property, would the rent that they can charge for the ADU be limited by the SIP? Or do they need to share the rent payments with the SIP?
So they would not need to share the proceeds of the rent with SIP.
Okay.
They would not. But if our program were to help them build the ADU, it would have a limit on the max rent. You couldn't just charge the highest rent possible. We cap the rent for our ADUs at 80% AMI, which is actually pretty high. I don't know what the exact is, but more recently it was like $1,600 for a 2-bedroom unit. So a lot of the participants in our program end up charging lower than the max rent. So all the rent would be yours, as would, the financing to pay for the ADU. So the reason that we say we can deliver affordable ADUs is because right now we can build them, and what you borrow to pay for our ADUs is less than what you can get for rent. So I put information in the chat, mywdrc.org. You can look at accessory dwelling units on there, and absolutely they can be paired with the Elevation Community Land Trust. It's stay in place, maintain is what we've been talking to you tonight, and stay in place, build is where you combined the stay in place program with the ability to build an accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you for that. And I know Councilwoman Torres has been entertaining and really looking at an analysis in terms of affordable options and with ADUs, because from what I understand, Councilwoman Torres, there's only so many areas that are zoned for ADUs.
Yeah, that's accurate. And the West Area Plan, which is taking place right now, covering Sun Valley, West Colfax, Villa Park, the 2 Barnum neighborhoods in Valverde, we're looking at proactively rezoning the remaining portions of Villa Park, Barnum and West Barnum for our office to sponsor rezoning them to allow for ADUs. So those individual homeowners, which we see come through one at a time, and they have to individually pay the application fee to rezone, wait 6 to 7 months for that to process through. We'd like to at least give them a jump start on that process, either to take advantage of WDRC's ADU Plus program, or to do their own construction and their own process, but to start developing that income stream, or the planning for a parent or a family member to be able to live on the property. That one would be about 2,500 parcels in those 3 neighborhoods. Councilman, you mentioned Westwood largely received a good amount of new zoning that allowed for that. There's one area left in that neighborhood that could be rezoned to allow for ADUs. But beyond that, our colleague, Councilwoman Sandoval, is handling any remaining parts of West Colfax that needed that permission. So we are moving that forward just to give our residents a little extra advantage in thinking about this for their property. And certainly along with Renee and WDRC, really working through all of the logistics in getting something like that contemplated. So really looking forward to being able to do this for our residents.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I think that is really critical. And for those of you who have been tuning in or are going to be sharing this information, please look at this opportunity, the Stay in Place program, and doing a land trust, and then which is something that is not a new concept, but is brilliant in its application right now. It's a good way to get from financial insecurity and being worried about that pending doom with that perhaps a foreclosure notice or whatever, to getting to a point where you're not only financially stable, but as this is very common, you see these garages where people are living at them because they're kind of converted on the DL, right? You kind of hush hush about it, but it's better than not having a place. With the ADU, you can actually, if you can actually convert it. Now you got to go through the permitting process. You can't just do it on your own, right? There are certain things and stuff that you have to do as a homeowner. But those proceeds could actually go to not just to you to help you maintain that financial stability, but it doesn't count against you if you are part of that land trust. So with that, I don't know if there's anything else anybody else wants to say, but I mean, as a reminder, you can find more information about the Stay in Place program. You can register for the orientation. It's going to take place next week at www.mywdrc.org/SIP. Did I just steal your thunder, Renee? Did I just do that?
You did not. No. Thank you very much for closing us out.
So-
Appreciate it.
Thank
no.
you all so much.
Yeah, you guys have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the sunset.
Good night.
Everybody.